Let's talk about tight hip flexors. Tightness on the front side of your body, which usually shows up in the form of overfiring your quads or feeling that tightness in the hip flexors, is usually the symptom of lack of connection to your back body. So if you're a person that you know grips in your quads, those hip flexors always feel like they're kind of on fire, step one for you is to start to focus on more glute activation and actually that back scapular activation as well. We want to get that posterior chain to fire up and strengthen so we can start to take some of the work off of the front of the body here and put it into the back body where it belongs. So that's really step one when we're looking at those imbalances. Step two is to focus on some of these releases either during your workout, before or after your workout. First thing we're gonna do to get into those quads releasing is a standing quad stretch. If you need a wall, a chair, something to hang onto for balance, I want you to grab that. Drag your weight down into one leg. Opposite leg comes up. You're gonna pull your heel to your butt and you're gonna breathe. So you're trying to point that leg straight down to the ground. Focus on your belly breath here. Nice release in your pelvic floor. Feel yourself let go. And then after you've held this for a few counts, we're gonna change the position just a little bit to get more into the hip flexor. So what you're gonna do, find my balance here, is hold that heel to your butt and you're just gonna tuck your pelvis underneath. And that tiny little bit of a tuck while you continue to point your knee down to the ground is gonna get into a nice big stretch here, the front of the quad and the hip flexor. Breathe into that for a few more seconds. It can be a pretty intense stretch when these guys don't want to release or they're on fire. And then ease yourself out of that. Head over to the other side. Same thing, find something to balance. Hug that heel to your butt. Open up the chest and shoulders. Last thing you want is to be stretching in one place and compensating somewhere else. Drop that knee straight down to the ground. Inhale. Let go. Exhale. Hug that heel towards your butt. And then we're gonna shift this just a tad by tucking that pelvis underneath. So you tuck under, that knee continues to press down and away. And you feel it a little bit deeper through the front of the quad and into that hip flexor. A few more counts here, breathe through it. And then ease yourself out of it. Good, give those legs a little bit of a shake. We're gonna come down to a half kneeling position. So bring yourself down to the ground. You're gonna take one knee in front. This other leg is lined up so your hip and your knee are in the same line. You can put your hands on your hips, open up the chest. From here, all you're gonna do is tuck that pelvis under. So this is really similar to what we just did in that standing position. Might feel a little bit easier, a little more balanced. If you are on a hard surface, you need to either roll a mat underneath that knee a few times, or maybe drop a pillow or blanket down underneath. And just hold this for a few counts. And then we're gonna untuck that pelvis, head over to the other side. So bring the other knee up in front, align your spine, open up your chest, and then gently tuck your tailbone under and feel that stretch up the front of the quad. Breathing into that. And these are stretches, like I said, you can add either before your workout or immediately after. For those of you that love to spin or bike or run, these are great stretches for you just to add into every workout after you're done and coming out of that. And then I want you to practice something that I call back marching. So if you're at the point in your pregnancy where you're not comfortable on your back, feel free to skip this. But if you're still comfortable there, this is more of a mental exercise than anything. You're gonna roll all the way down to the ground, folding those knees up underneath you. And then we do this a lot with our postpartum integrations and our foundations to get that core turned back on and slowly lift and lower those knees. So you're gonna take a big diaphragmatic breath, breathing in. And then as you exhale, lift up through your pelvic floor. Think of firing hip bone to hip bone to get those lower abdominals to turn on. After you've got this foundation on and off with every inhale, exhale, I want you to just imagine that you're sliding a piece of paper underneath that foot and then put it back down. Inhale, release the core. Exhale, shift over to the other side. Now the reason you don't want to lift this foot too high is because as soon as you lift to here, you are going to recruit those hip flexors, and we're trying to turn them off. What I'm trying to get you to train your body to do or to feel is that deep abdominal connection and that abdominal strength when lifting or moving your legs. That's why this movement is gonna be teeny tiny underneath you. You can even feel, when you're in this position in the middle, yourself grounding down into your heels. So when you lift this leg up, you feel the back of your leg fire, this glute. The glute is on my left leg, my lower abdominals are hugging in, my pelvic floor is lifted. Hip flexors get to stay out of the equation. And if they are firing, just get your hands in there to convince them to turn off. Exhale, feel that glute, feel the pelvic floor, feel the lower abdominals fire. And I want you to take these, sometimes 5 minutes of doing this work is helpful, sometimes 2 if that's all you've got. If you've got 10 minutes to lay here and try to get your hip flexors to turn off, glute, pelvic floor, lower abdominals, that's even better. And then one more tip for my postpartum moms that are recovering from a C-section. You want to make sure that you're getting into that C-section massage down here, nice and low, because what's happening is a lot of my C-section postpartum bodies have a lot of issues with their hip flexors and their quads firing because there's a lack of core strength here. So as you're training your core to fire again, as soon as you can start diving into that scar work, that release work right here, it's gonna help get these to loosen up as well. All right, good luck with those hip flexors and reach out to me if you have any questions.